don't know, I am a photo consultant and a photo rep. As a photo rep, I work with an all-female roster, elevating them in the commercial photography industry, promoting their work, estimating on jobs for them, that kind of thing. As a photo consultant, I work with all photographers, male, female, and I do photo website portfolio curation, so putting their work together, paginating, selecting the best images to tell the best story of their photography, and it specifically in the commercial world. I do work with non-commercial photographers occasionally. I've worked with wedding photographers and consumer photographers, but my primary focus and specialty is commercial work. I also consult with my clients and help them understand the industry more so that they have a better sense of the commercial photography world and how they can fit themselves into that. So today I'm going to be working on, or I'm going to be reviewing a photographer. I'll show you in a second. And if anybody has any questions, please put them in the comments. I'm going to try and toggle back and forth between the website and the comment boxes. And if you have any comments, and if the photographer is here, I haven't seen them show up yet. So if they show up, then hopefully they can chime in with their questions as well. So I'm going to get started. Let's pull in, yes, 1 second. Let me just pull this in. Uh-oh, where did it go? All right. Okay, today I'm going to be reviewing Jennifer Clemente's website, online portfolio website, and then I have her Instagram pulled up as well, just because I like to I think that it shows a different side of what the photographer is doing outside of what they're presenting on their website. So I've got that up as well. So if Jennifer is here, please let me know in the comments, and then you can ask specific questions. So Jennifer Clemente, when I go to Jennifer's website, this is the immediate, this is the first page, this is the landing page. And it's a scroll, I scroll down. So what I like to do, and I think in this particular case, I want to talk about a few different things to do with this website, but I'm going to do it kind of as I go through each of the pages, because I think there's different things that we can learn from this. So my immediate reaction when I come here, first of all, is it's set up very much more for a consumer. I would say this is one of those like hybrid consumer commercial kind of websites. And the reason for that is that, first of all, I come here and I'm looking at the menu. I go up and I see home, about, headshots, lifestyle brand, commercial, portrait, workshops, blog, contact. So I'm immediately not sure who I am and why I'm here. I think one of the things that you want to really get clarity on, no matter who your audience is who they are and really presenting it strongly to them. So when I look here, I see commercial lifestyle. So if commercial lifestyle is the main focus, I'm not getting that from here, partly because there's a section called commercial. So that immediately says to me that this is not specifically a commercial photography website, but the commercial lifestyle section is highlighted. I would say I'm not certain what, I didn't look to see what template this is. It may be Squarespace, but I do find that the design could use a little bit of work. The words are not really prominent enough to let me know that this is a heading section, like a heading for a section. The font is kind of, it's not prominent enough, and it's going right through her eyes. I also, personally, I'm not compelled by this image. It does have a commercial lifestyle component to it, but the image, the fact that there is this big painting that's quite intense, pulling my eye immediately, is distracting, and I don't think is presenting the best work forward, because I do know that Jennifer's work, she does have strong work, and I'm going to show you, but you want to see that right away. You want to see that right when you go to the page. I also find, if you're doing lifestyle work for that's this kind of thing, families or people hanging out, it's really important that, especially if this is going to be your front page image, that you do really good high quality retouching on the images, and shoot. I would have taken this painting down so that it's not even in the shot the whole time, because it takes away from, it distracts from the whole image. I also find these elements in the background could be removed. This is just from a visual standpoint. I probably would have removed this wine bottle as well. So visually, there's some things going on that are taking me away from the experience. All right, any questions? Let me know. I actually can see the comments at the same time right now, which is great. So I go down. Again, the copy to me is not, in the consumer world, there is this tendency to have copy heavy. And I think it's important in that world. I also know from looking through her website already that a big portion of the clients she's working with are personal branding, entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. And so in that world, copy makes a lot of sense. But to me, the design of the copy on the page is not compelling enough, and the images are secondary, which is one of the things that, if you're working on a commercial website, images forward and information very minimal. In this case, the information is prominent and the images are secondary, almost like as if you would select images for a blog or something like that. The pin it buttons, all of that are kind of, there's just a lot going on. And in the consumer world, a lot of that makes sense, but the design, I think, needs to be brought up a little bit to kind of attract specifically the audience that you're looking for, which, who is the ideal audience here? I think, there's headshots, there's lifestyle brand, there's commercial, there's portrait, there's workshops. I'm confused as to who the audience is when I first go here. So an intro about her, again, that's very much more in the consumer world and hybrid commercial consumer. I think it's worth having a little bit of a conversation about the term commercial photography. There's a lot of confusion about what that means, especially for photographers that are coming from more of a consumer background. They're getting commercial work every now and then and working with commercial clients and calling it commercial. But a lot of it is, first of all, when there's, the term commercial, yes, it means working with a client who is profiting, who is using it for business purposes, for their business to profit from. When I use the term commercial, I'm more talking about advertising. I'm more talking about, when you get to the level or the time that you're working with advertising agencies or bigger clients that have, that have agencies that they work with themselves. So a lot of the smaller business and personal branding, yes, it's commercial, but there's still a lot of them, and we're in a confusing time in the industry where a lot of what's happening in the industry is being dictated by photographers who are approaching it in this way of yes, this is commercial work, and the clients then start dictating how things get portrayed. So with these hybrid ones, a lot of the time it's content that they're looking for. They're not looking for a photographer necessarily. They're looking for content, and it is they're used to seeing things presented in more of a consumer fashion. So that, they're used to seeing packages, they're used to seeing these kinds of ways of engaging where you have copy that's telling them what they can get. And that makes a lot of sense in the, for personal branding and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But I feel like because there's this disconnect, in this case, I'm confused as to who that end client is. Does that make sense? I'm not seeing any questions or comments. I hope that I am still. Oh, I just heard myself talking. Okay. So the other thing that I find when I'm going through this is like I get here and the image is very overbearing. And it's a heading section. And I get that it's like leading you through the different sections that are already up here. So it's a different way of getting people to the next part of the website. But I find the images, first of all, overbearing. They take over the page. If it's copy heavy, then, focus on the copy or pick an image that isn't so, this one, it doesn't fine art portraits. It's not telling me really what fine art portraits is. Is it family portraits? So I'm confused when I go to the first page. And for a commercial website, I will just also stop and say, for a commercial website, this is definitely not a type of template that I would suggest. This is definitely a template that's more geared, because of this kind of scrolling is more geared to consumer work. This color up here as well, with all the information up here, that's also something that I feel is more in that world and not so much in the commercial world. Okay, so as we go through the menu up here, we go to the About section. First of all, the About section being first, I would bump that over here to where more of the information is, rather than kind of the first page, because you want to direct people to your work right away and not, about you, because that's, you want them to see your work and be compelled to keep going. So in this case, again, being led through more of a narrative experience of talking about the photographer and the approach. And those make a lot of sense when you're talking to a consumer audience, or a hybrid audience, I'll call it, where you're trying to explain to them the experience of working with you, and other examples of what people have gotten out of working with you, because that's really what you're trying to convey. But it doesn't work for the commercial world. And I also find that there's just a lot going on here, and the layout and everything isn't keeping me going. So with commercial, simple with everything. Okay, so headshots. Again, I talked last time about headshots being a being very not consumer, but like actor headshots, that kind of thing. And again, there's a portrait section and a headshot section here. I think that there's a need for a lot of photographers feel like they need to do everything right now, like need to be able to do every kind of photography, because there are so many photographers doing every kind of photography. But I will say that in this case, I would strongly suggest a niching down, just because there's just a lot of stuff. And I feel, as we'll go through, that there's some stuff that stands out and comes forward, and other stuff that is detracting and taking away. So you might still do headshots, but it's not necessarily something that you want to put on your website. Same with when we get into pricing. So this is definitely something that would be on the consumer end. Commercial photographers would not be displaying their pricing on their website, primarily because every single job is going to be different. There is no formula, there is no package. It's all about estimating on a job that is specific to that job, because every part is going to change. And what's happening now is that we have a lot of small businesses who are now used to looking at pricing this way, and therefore think, well, if I can get this for that much, why, there's just a different way of pricing. And so if you at all have clients where you're pricing in more of a commercial way, where you're estimating per job rather than on particular packages, then your clients are going to get really confused when they see that you do have packages, but then when you quote on a commercial job, they're confused about what your pricing model is and why this looks different than that. So package pricing is not something that I would suggest for a commercial world at all, although it's difficult when there's a lot of people who are doing it, and so it confuses the market. Okay, so I also think that the dangers of putting your pricing on your website is that it I don't know, it pigeonholes you. I think that sometimes what I've seen when people put their pricing, like a pricing range where it says, starting at or something like that for things like headshots, for things like that. However, if you are going full on with branding, personal branding, or packages where you provide, a package of a set of images, yes, it makes sense to put your pricing on there like this as a package. But there's a big jump when you go into the commercial world and you're working with clients differently. Can people hear me? Can somebody just let me know if you can still hear me in the comments? Excuse me. I'm just going to drink water for a second. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm wondering if people can still hear me right now. I think you must. Okay. I'm going to go to the actual. Okay, yes. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, so when I get down here to the lower part of it, this is where I feel like I can actually see her work, and I can say, oh, okay, I get a little bit more about her style. I get a little bit more about the work, partly because it's not one image that's overbearing the page, where I can actually look at a few images, see what she's all about. However, I know that when I go to other sections, this isn't what she's all about. There's a lot of different work that is totally different than this. So I do think, we've talked a little bit in other reviews about being very specific about your style and what kind of work that you're doing. Okay, so we'll go to that. Yeah, so here I'm seeing a little bit more. I'm not crazy about the layout, but I do get a little bit more of a sense of what she could do as a photographer for me. Don't love this at the bottom either. The bold colors like that really remove from the experience of the rest of the site. So being consistent with the design and the style, I think, is important as well. Okay, so that's headshots. We go to lifestyle brand. Okay, so again, we've got one of these big headings, except that this one's black. It showed up black from the beginning. I don't know if it's a loading issue. There's something going on. So Jen, if you're listening, please, you might want to check into this particular image. It's not showing up. So here again, now this section is cohesive in terms of who her client would be. This is okay, there we go, it loaded. So I think that image might be really large, and it's not there was just a question. I'll come to that in a second. So it's probably that the image is really large on the back end, and you might want to reduce the size of this, compress it so that it doesn't take so long to load. Okay, so here there's like a heading, personal brand. A great personal brand showcases a lifestyle and has all the elements in place. Great color, logo, colors, website, amazing services or products. Now all you need is beautifully styled photography to define the essence of your brand. Okay, so this section on its own, outside of the rest of the website, makes sense to me because it's speaking very specifically to a personal brand audience. And it's using language that talks to the audience. It's set up in a way that I understand as a person who is interested in having personal branding photography done, that this section would be speaking to me. And then I go through and the experience makes sense. I'm being told, how that how that works, what the experience would be working with her, all of that kind of thing. And I'm seeing imagery to back that up. So I'm seeing the imagery that talks about the how you could do a personal branding session where you would shoot a little bit of maybe my product or a little bit of me working or a little bit of the details, and how I could get content to fill those holes. There's specific instructions on, what would be involved, what I could walk away with. So this is very much in line with how this image takes me out though, because it's definitely not in the personal branding world. So I would change this image if you were going to do it. But this section in itself is its own website. So I'm not saying that her website is not working. It's just that they're kind of all different websites. And I really think that it would be strengthened by making this its own website, a personal branding website. If this is all you want to shoot, then have this be the only website that you have. Obviously build out the sections and make it more, but this is its own thing. Commercial is its own thing. Headshots is its own thing. They're very specific audiences, and trying to put them all into one box is not working, because and I know that people want to simplify and keep one website, but there's just a different way that you speak to your audiences. And when you try to speak to those audiences in a way that's outside of them, it starts to fall apart, and then everything gets diluted and not clear, not making sense, and I'm not compelled to go more. Like if I got to the main website and I was looking for a personal branding photographer, okay, yes, I might automatically go to the lifestyle brand section, but I might not. I might go somewhere else first and then be like, oh, how is she going to help me? I'm going to go to the questions just really quickly. Okay, Jamie asks, why don't you like the layout? Would a gallery slider be better for that? Okay, so it's not necessarily, first of all, I wish I had checked which template this was. It's not so much that I don't like the layout. It's that I don't like the layout for commercial, for sure. It's not the right kind of website for a commercial photographer. It can work for this, like what we're talking about now, lifestyle branding. This template could for sure work. But there are certain things. I am on a 27-inch monitor, so it might be a different experience on a smaller monitor. But right now I'm feeling like the images need a little bit more breathing room. I feel like the images here need some space around them so I can differentiate between the three of them, because they're not quite meshing to me. Like they don't, one of the big things that I do is selecting images and putting them together, and so that they are stronger. And right now they're all getting a little bit blended together, a little bit washed out. None of them are really drawing me in. Whereas if you kind of change the design a little bit, maybe there's more white space around the images so you can see the images separately. Sometimes they work bumped together, but every single situation is going to be different. So I think that the template, the template could work for her, but it needs some customization, some adjustments, like I said, with the copy and the design parts of it. But Jamie says for a commercial page. So for a commercial page, and like I said, when I use the term commercial, I'm talking about advertising. I'm talking about larger commercial clients, not small business and personal branding. For those situations, when we're talking advertising, the reason that this page, this kind of template doesn't work for me, and for the industry in general, is because it's not image forward. It's speaking more about the experience of working with you. It's copy centric. It's really set up more for that consumer or hybrid audience. Whereas a website that is that is image centric. So where you either have, you know, an image that leads to an image that leads to an image, or a grid, but less copy, less to no copy. Really, the only pages that I would ever put copy on a commercial photography website, well, there are a few, but the about page or the bio, and the contact page. And sometimes in a creative section, if there's a need for a kind of uh, artist statement or something like that. But other than that, I would not put copy on a commercial website. It doesn't speak to that audience, and it takes away from the experience of looking at the images. Because really, when a commercial client, like on an advertising kind of scale, when they come to your website, they want to see the work, and they want to be directed through your website by the work, not by what you're saying about it. Water. Okay. Does that make sense? Does that help? Does that answer your question, Jamie? Okay, so where were we here? Okay, so as I was saying, this does lead me through that experience of a lifestyle branding photographer. This one doesn't so much this image, but you know, the idea of the copy over top with a button, it all is kind of very much in that realm, and it makes sense for that kind of audience. So this page in itself can work as a lifestyle branding photographer website. And if that's the direction that Jennifer wanted to go, then that's where you know, I would say this is on the right path, and it does the job of like telling you the different kinds of, like, I get the message a lot more clearly in this section. And the thing is that it's not the only section. So, you know, when you're a lifestyle brand and then there's a commercial section and then there's a portrait section, it gets confusing. And I'd say that if you're going after lifestyle personal branding kind of work, then that's all you should be doing, because everything else is taking away. So here we get into commercial, lifestyle, food, and spaces. Okay, so again, I think this when I go here, first of all, the images are bumped up next to each other. I don't really get a sense of the work and what she could do for me if I were looking for a commercial photographer. I think sometimes when people use the word commercial, they think, oh, how would I show what a commercial space is like, or what a commercial product is like? And that's not, for a commercial advertising audience, that's not what you really want to be displaying. Is how am I showcasing a brand or a product or a business? It's how are you, it's like, in some cases it's about the lifestyle aspect if you're a lifestyle photographer. In some cases it's about how you show the product if you're a product photographer. But it's not necessarily about like showing how you would show each product or each space. So it's, in this case, I don't feel like this is her best work. And I know it's not, because I've seen her other work. So I feel like putting this big on the front page is not necessarily telling me anything. Strong images, everything should be really strong and pulling people in more. I prefer this, where I can see just an image by itself. So this to me feels like, I like this when I can see, you know, the website, and I can actually have time with an image and see it, and it works for me, you know, in terms of letting me know what she could potentially do. It's not necessarily enough on its own, and I'd want to like see more and click to the next one, but I feel more like, oh, okay, I can actually breathe and I can actually spend time with this image. So that's in this case, that feels better to me. Let's see, Irisa, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Some web designers suggest text for Google to read your page. Do you think putting minimal text on the bottom of the page after images would work? Text for Google. Are you talking from an SEO standpoint? On the bottom of the page after the images. You know, in the commercial, I I don't think that things like SEO and stuff like that are really that important. Yes, for certainly if you're going to be trying to appeal to this kind of, you know, like lifestyle brands and stuff like that, copy is important for not only explaining to your clients what you can do for them, but also just SEO and all of that. Okay, I'm getting an error message. I hope my video is not being weird right now. Okay, well, anyway, hopefully it's still working. But yes, so in the commercial world, SEO is just not that important. It's also, yes, you know, spend time on it if it's something that you have time to spend and if you have the resources to do it properly. But you know, it just kind of cheapens it, in my opinion. And what you want to be doing with your commercial work, if you're kind of going to that more advertising level of commercial work, is, you know, really simplifying and making it about the images and not trying to like put things just because of SEO or just because of other, you know, things are doing it, or because it just it cheapens it and it lessens what the impact can be. So yeah, from SEO. So I just don't think that that is important. When people are looking for a photographer who shoots, say, a food photographer, they're not necessarily more than likely not. That's not really how, you know, Vancouver food photography end of things. It would be more about you reaching out or getting, or word of mouth, or Instagram. Again, with the commercial world is searching for you. Certainly people might search like terms in Instagram. So like when you're talking about you know, so much like Vancouver food. So yeah, I don't think that it doesn't work for that audience to be really relying on SEO, and it makes it look really it cheapens it and makes it look like it's not really the right audience. Okay, so again, and on this page, there's a lot of copy. If you're going to have copy and it's talking to, say, the lifestyle brand, one of the things as well that, you know, we'll touch on is that for a branding photographer, if she's going to go after that market, the lifestyle brand market, then that audience cares about design. So I would definitely put a lot more effort into, you know, finding a designer to do some of the copy layout and stuff like that on the website, because that audience cares about that, because it's how they want to see their work. So if they can see when they go to your website how they want their work to be seen, then that's going to resonate with them. But if they go and there's just this floating copy that doesn't really have any, you know, design thought, then it's going to repel them. So I think you want to be mindful of that. So in the commercial thing, I know that her commercial work, and I think this is something that I actually have a lot of photographers who like, when I start working with them, what they perceive as their commercial work is not really what fits into the commercial world. They might select images like this that are, you know, oh, this is a commercial shot. Whereas when I select their work, it's totally different. What is actually, you know, what people want to see in that world is very different than what a lot of photographers, especially photographers coming from more of the consumer world, what they think is commercial. So this section being called the commercial section, first of all, I know that a lot of her work fits in a commercial context, which I'll show you when we go to her Instagram page later. But here, I don't get a sense of it at all. I don't get a sense of what kind of commercial the work is not like, what kind of commercial photography, and how does it relate to me. So this section isn't working, even though I know that a lot of what she does want to do is more commercial work. So if you want to do more commercial work, this would need a whole new website that's separate from all of this, like headshots, lifestyle, all of this stuff out, just images. And more along the lines what I've talked about before, where it is very much just a gallery of your work organized in different ways. Okay, so we've got some questions coming in. Let me see if I can. Okay, Jamie, it's freezing for me. Anyone else? I think there was a little bit of an issue. It says that YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So you're experiencing buffering. Okay, so I don't know how to fix that. I'm not sure if anyone has any ideas. Yeah, it's freezing for me. Oh dear. Same here. Okay, could you possibly repeat that last bit about searching? I think the stream is catching up and it's cutting between phrases. Just didn't quite catch the part about SEO in regards to commercial photography. I'm running into that now, working on my website, keep being prompted to put text on it, but don't really want to. Okay. All right, is anything improving? I'm trying to figure out how to fix this. I don't know. I don't have anything else open right now, so I don't know what is causing this to happen. Is anything improving, or is it still doing the glitchy thing? Okay, it's saying serious issues that need attention. I don't know how to give it attention. Does anyone have any idea? I'm going to keep talking because I just want to make sure that I know that some of you might not be getting what I'm talking about. So I'll go back to the SEO for a minute to try and follow up with Jamie. I just don't think that you need to be putting a lot of focus on SEO with commercial work. But again, it really depends what you define as commercial. If you're talking about lifestyle branding, if you're talking about headshots, well, lifestyle branding in particular, then yes, SEO is important. If you're talking about small businesses who might be trying to search for a specific kind of photographer in a specific area, then yes, SEO could be important. But for a commercial website that is looking for advertising work that's on, or clients that are more in the advertising realm, then no, SEO is not important. Okay, all good now. Okay, good, I'm glad. It's still giving me an error, so hopefully it won't happen again. But hopefully that helped, Jamie. I just tried to clarify a little bit. And I don't believe that SEO, you can do work SEO as far as you can with, without it bogging up the aesthetics of your site, because really with commercial work, it's more about like, look at my work, look at the work. And what I was talking about is that when a commercial, like advertising, like an agency, say, they're not going to be looking for you by Vancouver food photographer on Google. They are going to be getting a promo from you. They are going to be getting you, sending them a link to their website, your website, or have heard about you through another avenue. Sometimes they might Google it, but it's honestly not something that that I would suggest putting focus on, especially if it's taking away from the experience of the images, because the images for commercial advertising, commercial should be the focus. Because if you take them out, they're going to leave. If it's just to provide SEO to bring people to your website, the idea is to keep them on your website and explain to them how you can help them and what you can do. And just having SEO there is automatically going to pull away, well, not SEO, I should say copy that, just sits on your website for SEO purposes is not doing that. Hopefully that answers that. Okay, so as I was saying, this section doesn't speak to me in terms of commercial. Did you guys catch what I was saying about the different kinds of, like when I was talking about how a lot of the photographers that come to me what they think is commercial work is not what commercial work is, and how what I will select is often totally different than what they view as commercial. Did you guys hear that part? Because it kind of is important, because I think there's a lot of confusion around what commercial work is and what people in a commercial audience want to see. And this is not speaking to a commercial audience. So So just wanted to make sure that that got through. Okay, so we'll go to the portrait section. Fine art portraits. Okay, so again, I think this is similar to the lifestyle brand section, in that it could be its own website. This would be like if you're going to be a family portrait photographer or a family portrait photographer or something like that. This makes sense there, but being an extra section, this is a website on its own. Like all of these, it's like too much. You're trying to do too much and trying to put forward too much. And I know that we're in a competitive field where there's a lot of photographers and you feel like you need to do everything, but I can honestly tell you that by doing less, you are going to attract more. And also that you're people that are outside of what you are putting yourself forward as are still going to want to work with you. Like if you're saying I'm a fine art portrait photographer and this is the entire direction that you go, you're still going to get clients in other realms and commercial. You're still going to get commercial. If we talk about small business and that kind of thing, you'll still get that kind of work, but you need to kind of choose something, hone in on it and do it really well, because having all of this stuff is repelling people, and it's not sending a clear message. So I would select something and focus on it. You could certainly have a few different websites if you feel like you want to. I work with a lot of photographers who are bridging, between the consumer world to the commercial world. And a lot of times they'll retain two websites for a little while so that they can still kind of keep that consumer audience alive while they make a transition into the commercial world. But I would never suggest that you try to appeal to a consumer audience at the same time as a commercial audience, because it's just totally different and you can't speak to them in the same way on the same website. So separate it if you must do it. But in this case, like, you can speak to, say, lifestyle brand, headshots, and portraits can work together in a certain way. I still suggest honing in on one and being really specific is going to be better, but I do think those ones could work together. But if you throw commercial in there, it's completely it's not working, because the commercial audience that I'm talking about will come here and they will immediately say, nope, this isn't for me. This is not the kind of work that I'm looking for. This is not the kind of photographer that I'm looking for. So if you want to focus more on commercial, make a whole new website for it and keep it separate. Let me check in. Thanks, it did help. I guess it's just hard when you're trying to get your site higher up on Google so clients can actually find you, look at your work in the first place. Yeah, I get that. And it's hard to know, Jamie, what your ideal audience is. So, in some cases, SEO does matter, but I think less and less nowadays. I think, focusing on getting SEO ranking is sometimes not the best use of time, and it ends up being something that takes you away from, like, it can be something that we put our attention on that's not necessarily helping, get your work better or get your, message out in a stronger way to the right people. So SEO, I think, is less important than it used to be, especially because it's definitely more competitive now, and people are able to do SEO, more effectively nowadays. But I just don't think it's a valuable, use of time, and especially when it comes to commercial. With consumer and all of that. And if you're in a specific niche that's not competitive, don't get me wrong, I do SEO and I think that SEO is important, but I don't think it's the most important. So I would say, like, doing alt tags and, when you write your bio and everything that you can, and use a blog if you have to. And, sometimes you can have a blog on your website that if SEO is important to you, then do a blog in some way, because that's really how you're going to get some SEO work. You can even have a blog and make it not look like a blog so that you're getting the SEO, but it's not, or maybe have a blog and it's not forward on your website, something like that. But that's really the place that you're going to be getting. Like for photography, commercial photography, it's just copy is not important. So you can do the alt tags on your images, you can do the headings, and the places that you can put SEO in, definitely do it. I'm not saying don't do it at all. I'm just saying that it is not more important than the images, and in terms of like getting your work, getting ranking on Google. Jamie, right. I hadn't thought about the fact that they may not be Googling food photographer. Yeah, exactly. So with, if we're talking about ad agencies or bigger clients, they're not Googling. That's not, maybe every now and then, but that's not the primary way that they're going to be finding a photographer, partly because Google ranking doesn't say anything about whether somebody is a good food photographer or anything like that. It just says that they know SEO and got good ranking on Google. So it's not necessarily telling them everything, and they don't necessarily want to spend the time to go through every page on Google to search. So, they're getting enough enough photographers by people sending them promos and sending them their websites and sending them, telling them that they exist rather than having to find them. They're not necessarily searching. I did say, however, and I don't know if you heard this part about Instagram. Instagram is a place that you can be searchable, but it's still not, necessarily Vancouver food photographer or that kind of thing. Okay, so workshops. So then we get into workshops, and again, it's just so much. There's just so much that this photographer is trying to do, and that they're trying to, be a lot of things. And then when they're doing workshops, and specifically their workshops on teaching photographers or teaching personal brands, which is one of her clients, how to take pictures, which is going to be taking clients away from herself. Obviously they're not going to be, they're still going to want to work with her for her personal branding, but it is like, I'm confused when I go here. So if creative workshops, I know that everybody is like, especially right now, everybody's trying to kind of branch out and do different things because everything is kind of, we're in a weird place right now. So I know that there's a lot of kind of like, oh, I can do this, so I'm going to do this. And that's totally fine and absolutely valid. And there's nothing wrong with that. And maybe this is serving that purpose. Like right now I can't shoot, so I'm going to do workshops. And that is great. Like totally makes sense. But when I go to your standalone website, I'm just saying that's what I see. And it confuses me when I come here. So, and again, there's a blog. For commercial websites, like I was just talking about blogs, I don't actually recommend blogs for commercial photographers, unless of course that's something that you have the time to do and want to do and are interested in doing for SEO purposes. But it's not important. Nobody's, the only way that I sometimes feel like a blog could work is if you do, I've talked to a few photographers about this, where if you want to show a body of work. So, a lot of times, especially when I'm working on a website, if I have, the categories of say portraits and lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. So I've got the different categories, but you want to kind of show sometimes how somebody could view a whole shoot that you did as a story or as that kind of thing. So a blog, maybe not calling it a blog, maybe calling it projects or something like that, can serve that purpose and can kind of bring together a story so that people can look at your work in a different way. Or you could link it up to your emails or something like that, so that they're seeing kind of your blog and your emails are kind of associated with one another. But a blog where you're talking about national holidays and your content marketing. So this is how to host vintage inspired high tea. So these don't really speak to me about what she does. I think a blog, if you're going to do a blog, on a commercial photography website, it should be tied in. And even if you're going to be doing one for any of these, it should be the topics that you should be doing should be very, very specific to the audience that you're talking to. That's why I'm talking about this particular website is talking to too many audiences. And so it's talking to no one. Like, you go to a link and it's like, if you go here and this is not speaking to me, I'm gone. I'm like, why is that? Why do I care about national holidays in content marketing? Like, that doesn't relate to me. So this is not the right place for me. So I think that it's really important that everything, when you are doing whatever she chooses to be her focus, is present in everything that she's presenting. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll go to the contact section. Send an email, that's great. So yep, she's got all the information there, which is really good. You want to definitely have you know, she's even got her address on there. Hopefully it's just a studio address. You don't want to probably be putting your home address on there, but having your phone number and your email clickable is definitely what to do. Nice photo of herself. I wouldn't, the pin it button. Yeah, I know that they're, what are they called? Widgets. And I know that, you know, once you do it on something, it's going to show up on everything. It's definitely something more in the consumer world, and not so much, definitely not at all on the commercial world. So, and again, these colors, it's distracting me on a branding level. Usually with these templates, you can, I think this is probably a widget. This seems like a widget. This actually might be a WordPress site, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And WordPress can be tricky for photography sites. I've found a few, there's definitely a few that work, but you know, I would definitely think about, you know, taking out a widget that's doing something like this. It may serve a purpose, but it's yeah, confusing things. Okay, so, and you know, it's good that she's got her phone number and her website and social things, but this feels more in the consumer world. I would almost put it like at the bottom, or just the pink. I think the pink color as well, which works for this. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying it doesn't work for commercial specifically. Okay, so I do want to go to her Instagram. Where did it go? Here. Okay, so here is Jennifer Clemente's Instagram page. So one thing I would say actually right away is that, you know, her website is Jennifer Clemente and her Instagram is Jen Clemente. Might be that Jennifer Clemente was gone, but people are more likely going to be searching by, you know, want to look at her name, although hopefully they've just clicked from her website or something like that, but they might have seen you here first and then clicked over. Okay, so with this stuff, I definitely get more of the consumer side of things and personal branding. And it does say brand photographer and creative director. So wellness for brands and entrepreneurs. Okay, so this to me says that she's a brand photographer, and in which case I would say go full on with this and just expand upon it, make it more comprehensive, take out the commercial and just speak directly to this audience. I would even take out headshots, I would take out portraits, and I would just focus on lifestyle brands and make it that, so that you can talk very specifically and directly to that audience and not confuse them. I do happen to know that, you know, she is more interested in a more commercial audience. So knowing that, I get a more of a sense of the work that she could potentially do on her Instagram. And I feel like, you know, one of the things, because I was thinking about this, it's happened a few times now with the reviews, is that I get way more of a sense of a photographer when I go to their Instagram than I do when I go to their website. And I think, you know, partly it's because Instagram is forcing you to be image centric. You're not, yes, there's certainly, if I clicked on it, there's going to be copy if they write something. So if they write more of a comment, yes, there can be copy, but if I'm looking for a photographer on a commercial scale, I am more interested in looking at their work and seeing, can they do what I want them to do, what I need them to do? And, definitely I get more of a sense of her as a personal branding or lifestyle branding photographer when I go here, but I do see that she has other work that does fit into a different bracket. And I would say that that I have more of a sense of, first of all, how she would achieve a personal branding shoot. I can see like the mix of portraits and still life and food, and like she has that. Now, knowing that she wants to also appeal more to a commercial audience, I would say that I can see some of her work fitting into that bracket, but there's other things that are pulling me out, the things that speak more to the lifestyle branding. That's why I'm saying, if you're going to go down the commercial route, the lifestyle branding, personal branding thing pulls me out when I'm looking at you in that context. So even though I know, and I'm looking at it because I edit work all the time, and I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I think she could fit into that world, but knowing that there's work that needs to come out and probably work that needs to go in to really send that message more strongly, because she has some good work. It's just not being shown in the best way on her website. So again, I think it's really about sending that clear message to your audience. And right now she's speaking more to a lifestyle branding audience. And if that's the goal, then I would go full on with that and take everything else out. If she wants to appeal more to a commercial audience, then this needs to be cleaned up as well as focusing. I wouldn't say focusing on this section because this section doesn't speak to me about commercial photography, but making it more directed, the whole website directed to commercial work, and still being able to get like personal branding clients are still going to come to you when you're trying to appeal to a commercial audience, because you do good work, because your best work is brought forward. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to look at a few of these questions. Where are we? How do you feel about using a blog on a commercial website for behind the scenes project sharing as well as sharing personal projects? So I just generally don't feel like a blog. And again, it really depends what kind of commercial work you're talking about, but on kind of advertising agency kind of commercial photography, I would say a blog is not important. I wouldn't focus your energy on it. But I do think that you can show different, and especially if you're working with more lifestyle brands or that kind of thing, then like what Jen is doing, I feel like you can do a blog because a blog is going to add value to what you're doing and speak to the audience, but being really specific about what you're posting. But I do think like showing series, and you can show work that's outside of what is on your portfolio. So the one thing that I would use it as is a way to show, personal projects or things that you're doing that you don't necessarily want to put on your in your portfolio, or they don't fit, say concept wise, or it's a fine art series or something like that. Yes, that definitely serves a purpose, and I think is interesting for people to see things that are outside of what you're doing. Also things that don't necessarily aren't good enough to put on your portfolio. I don't want to use the term not good enough, but aren't portfolio worthy, because everything on your portfolio should be bang on. But you might have some really great work, especially work that shows a story. And sometimes a shot from a story doesn't stand on its own, but as a story, it works really well. So it's a nice way to do that. And it could be a good way to do it. I don't know that I would necessarily call it a blog though. But something, maybe a creative section, or maybe a blog or a journal or something that where people can look at things in terms of project rather than in terms of, here's my portfolio. Arisa, makes sense about the blog. Great tips. Jeannie, would you recommend calling the blog stories instead of blog if it will be project based? Yeah, stories, projects, journal, something like that could work. But again, I really wouldn't focus too much on a blog. It really, unless it is serving a very specific purpose. Otherwise, you don't want to have people, I would say that having something called projects or stories, if somebody goes there first, you have to make sure that if somebody happens to click on that one first, does it speak to what message you're trying to send? Because, here, I'm going to just go back here because this is the website we're on. But if I go to her website and the first place I go to is her blog, say it's called projects, and I go here and I go and I say, and I see 3 ways to use national holidays in your content marketing, or Paris Je t'aime, like I'm going to go, okay, or anything vintage inspired tea party. I go here, and if I'm pulled out by whatever story or project you happen to be focusing on that week, then I'm going to say, oh, I'm in the wrong place and I'm gone. So it's, even if you're going to present it this way, I wouldn't present it like blog style like this, where there's a lot of, thing. It's more like about the images, and that making sure that if it is a story that you're presenting and it doesn't fit on your portfolio, because of that, and you want to present it as a story, still, is it strong enough as a story? And also, is it work that is going to really speak to your audience? Sometimes, like I will say, creative work can be a little bit outside of that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in line with the rest of your brand. Like, it doesn't need to be in line with your photography. It could be, maybe you're a lifestyle photographer, but you shoot fine art flowers on the side or something like that for your own pleasure. That's a bad example. Say you do documentary style, like travel photography or something as your personal project or your creative work. Well, that's going to be interesting to somebody in the commercial world, even though it's completely outside of what you're doing as a commercial photographer. You go in to see what inspires somebody, to see like what they're creating and what makes them tick and how they see the world and all of that. So creative work can be completely outside of the rest of your vision as a photographer. But if I go into something that's called projects and I'm looking at something that's still commercial, but it's in a story kind of format, it still needs to be in line with the rest of your vision and fit with your brand, fit with everything, and not pull me out of that experience, because then I'm going to be like, whoa, what happened? Like, everything made sense to me in the portfolio, but now I'm coming here, and can she really pull it off? Can she really do, like, because I've lost on some of these images, they're not as strong, or they're, like, I love that image, but I don't love like the other 4 around it. Or maybe as a story, it's not as strong. So I don't know if that helps.